Very good afternoon to everyone present here and to everyone watching the live stream. Thank you for attending today's conference, and I know it's the end of the day, so I will try and keep my presentation very concise. Before I share my autoethnography, my MIA autoethnography, I would like you all to know where I'm from. Thank you. Where I'm from, back home in India, a really small town juxtaposed to New York. Geographically, it's a drought-stricken area with water scarcity, dilapidating infrastructure, potholes, inadequate public investment in the mass education system, cited by corruption, politics, bureaucracy, making the education system very ineffective and inefficient. Critical thinking opportunities, non-experiential learning, not used to thinking out of the box, not used to using emotionality in my work or having the space to put down in my paper how I genuinely feel about certain things. That's where I come from. I wanted an opportunity to expand my horizons. When I moved here in January this year, and I started my first semester, it was my first time living in a size of a city as big as New York. Skyscrapers, manifold people, the blue streak pace, constant noise, and more people who do not have time to stop and talk to me, people who don't have time to, or people who don't acknowledge my presence because I'm brown. I couldn't keep up with this. I couldn't keep up with this pace. All I could think of was how all the good of my small, I could think of all the good of my small town. My beautiful family, the temples, the culture, I just wanted to go back. Being faced with racial microaggressions and macroaggressions, homesickness, anxiety, major demanding transitional issues, especially because I'm a person of color, meeting with an accident in my first month of being here, experiencing a decline in my emotional, social, and academic functioning during this transition, it made me question, have I made the right choice? Have I made the right decision by moving here so far away from my home, from my family, leaving my country? But what happens next? My response to these stressors and my cognitive, emotional, behavioral, and psychological changes that were elicited by these external and internal stressors could break me, could lead me to adverse, maladaptive coping responses. Could be substance abuse, could be eating disorders, could be depression. I could totally miss this opportunity that I had got to receive quality education at TC, this opportunity of using emotionality in my work, this opportunity of having the freedom to learn and write and study what I want to study. What saved me from adapting to negative coping responses when I was experiencing all of these stressors? MIA. Yes. By the works through the morning, you all know and are aware of the MIA process. And I've been through the same process of doing my hourly reflections, rituals, and practices of the indigenous groups, achieving the third head, and how I would define the third head, as many of you asked earlier, could you define the third head? But I've put a third head in my words. And that's how I describe my colloquialism of the first 6 weeks of doing MIA. I was standing on the ground floor of a massive glass building and letting every person, emotion, perspective, happening affect me. But slowly after a few weeks, I saw a part of me got into an elevator of that building and moved up a few floors of that building. That part of me is constantly watching over me and looking down upon me and giving me instructions on how I have to respond to the stimuli. It's like a part of me is constantly telling me, it's this conscious awareness, is this constant mindfulness, that when you're faced with racial microaggressions or any external or internal stressor, I have the power within me to shield myself. And I can proudly say that my transitional experience to this new life I chose for myself has been a smooth one and a fortunate and fortunately a very effective one. I would like to thank Dr. Wallace for recommending me this class and Dr. Vergara for this methodology. It's been a life transformational experience for me. I can go on talking about my personal experience with Mia because there's ample good that has come out of it. We'll not go into more details about the manifestations because I would like to talk a little bit about how I linked my work, my research work in Mia to the trans-theoretical model for a class I did with Dr. Ray Marks. As I was advancing in my research, I studied the trans-theoretical model of change along with Mia. The theory of the trans-theoretical model of behavior change assesses an individual's readiness to act on a new, healthier behavior and provides strategies to guide the individuals through the stages of change to action and maintenance. The stages of change as described by this model are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Yes, I was going to also add that. I'm sorry. One of the main constructs of the trans-theoretical model by Prochaska and DiClemente being self-efficacy skills is what I saw myself obtain. And I gained decisional balance on temptations, all constructs of this model that I experienced within myself. I conducted personal research with a few people around me, and I've seen young ones identifying themselves the problems of substance abuse, sexism, racial aggressions, eating disorders, because they were mindful of their thoughts and actions at all times. I've experienced how young children have actually emailed me and reported these problems and identified solutions, how they use Mia to move through Prochaska's stages of change, moving from subconsciousness to consciousness, and coming up with solutions themselves to better themselves. Some students who were research participants reported to have joined a gym to deal with eating disorders. Some students reported to have started group therapy to deal with alcoholism. So Mia is a powerful tool that allows for regular personal introspection and help have the knowledge come within yourselves, from within yourselves, to move through Prochaska's and Clemente's theory. I went through these stages of moving from not knowing the problems that exist to becoming aware of my reality, and through hourly reflections, becoming so mindful of my thoughts so that I can get ready to prepare myself to take the actions and maintain these actions. In my case, being so in tune with my negative emotions that I was faced with when I got here, not even letting the slightest or the biggest racial remark affect me or bother me. So do you see the power that this methodology has and brings from within us? I pledge you all, and I want, with Mariana, to make this paradigm shift in our ways of being, to make our societies, our communities, our countries more mindful of our actions, thoughts, feelings, deeds, and doings. And as Dr. Gordon said, carry on with this work in the interest in human agency and serve the best purpose of humanity. Approximately 29,000 women were raped in India in the year 2015. An Indian girl child aged 1 to 5 years is 75% more likely to die than an Indian boy, making this the worst gender differential in child mortality for any country in the world. 500,000 girl children killed every year in India. This gives me goosebumps. In my vision for Mia and continuing my work with Dr. Mariana Vergara, we are starting to implement Mia programs in schools, working towards it, for adolescents in India to be able to train the young ones right from the start of being mindful with the goal of creating gender equality and stopping female infanticide. To be able to create mindfulness of how a father is treating his wife in front of the children of the house to model non-sexist behavior, to be mindful of teaching young men to respect all women around in order to stop women from being shamed and disrespected, to be mindful of giving the girl child the right to education and work. With this goal in my mind, I want to end with the words of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech. Let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Proud is totally insufficient to express what I feel for your growth and for your vision and your mission and for your global leadership that has emerged in this very short span of time and your commitment. Can you clarify? You mentioned receiving emails. Now, did you actually implement this?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that? Please explain.
I was working in India for 3 years before I got here. I set up a social enterprise called Jumpstart, where we work with children. It's an after-school program for children with fewer opportunities. And we are in 3 cities now. So I corresponded with the supervisors back home at Jumpstart, and they kind of started doing MIA with the children there. And those are the emails.
So you shared materials with them and basically
yes,
gave them a guide as to what to do.
Yes. And that's the start of what I want to do in India.
And what's your organization called again?
Jumpstart. Jumpstart.org if you want to check it out online. Yes.
Fantastic.